Judy from Seattle is correct. All they're looking to do is repackage this message of inequality and redistribution to the top and corporatism and corporations of people. They're just looking to repackage it. That's all they're doing. They're not looking to change the policy. And until they change their policies and until they understand that the kind of crap that they say to people and the kind of crap that they do to people. Look, here's a for instance, okay? Rick Perry in Texas said on Tuesday he's going to now support proposals that require people who get unemployment benefits and food stamps to submit to a urine analysis drug screening. That is so Florida of you, Rick Perry. I have to say, it's just so it's so Florida. It's so Rick Scott. It's so yesterday. It's so over this crap. Here's their look. They're always trying to tell you that, you know, if you're middle class, there's always somebody that you can look down on, and that person is the person that you have to treat like crap. And if you don't treat that person like crap, then they're going to get you. They're going to get you. They're out to get you. This is the Republican strategy. Now, why do they do this? Why do they pit one American against another American? They do it because they can't sell their ideas of privatizing Social Security, privatizing Medicare, of stealing pension funds of federal employees, of, you know, not taxing these Uber computers that make transactions so quickly that your 401k can be decimated in a blink of an eye and nobody will be any the wiser. That there is no penalty for doing that. There's no charge for, trading millions and millions and millions of shares in the blink of an eye. There's not any kind of a transaction tax on doing that to the entire global economy, let alone to the person like me who has a 401k or a pension fund worker. So they can't sell these ideas to you. So instead they say he's the reason why you're having problems, and you must do something terrible to that person. That person is sucking off of you. That person is getting food stamps for her children. That person is getting unemployment insurance, which their employer paid for them to get. That person is getting Social Security insurance, which they paid for themselves to get. That person is getting Medicare insurance, which they themselves paid to get, and they're supplementing with another policy because Medicare doesn't cover everything. But they don't want to tell you what they're up to, and so instead they pit one person against the other. Well, this is, what we did in Florida. Governor Rick Scott thought that this was going to be a great way to get people angry at people who were less fortunate than they found themselves in. The situation they found themselves in. And so Rick Perry, Rick Scott and Rickies, okay, Ricky Snyder, Rick Perry, Rick Scott, they're all Rickies. There's something wrong with them. But they're telling you, these Constitution lovers, that they are. They're telling you that because you lost your job, through no fault of your own, which is what it has to be in order to get unemployment insurance. Can't quit and get unemployment insurance. It has to be through no fault of your own. You got laid off or somebody fired you. Or because you have children and you're working, but you can't make ends meet and you get a supplemental nutrition card. That you lose your right to privacy. You lose all your rights under the Constitution. You lose your right against suspicionless search by the government. If you find yourself in a position where you've lost your job or you have children and you're working and you just need some supplemental assistance to make it through the month with, food stamps, then you must give up your urine. You must submit to a drug test. You must give up your constitutionally protected right against unreasonable, suspicionless search by the government. By the government. Now, I don't know how they get to, sit there and read from the Federalist paper and the Constitution and tell you, this is an invasion of, Obama's out to get you and he's invading your constitutional authority and we're all going to be Marxists now. Meanwhile, they are so intrusive with their use of government. Every time you give them authority to use government, they use it against people who, through no fault of their own, find themselves doing less well than they used to and need to cash in those insurance policies. I don't see why, because you're poor, or because you're temporarily unemployed, or because you're temporarily unable to, buy the food that your kids need so that they can be not hungry while they go to school, that you have to give up your constitutional right against unreasonable, suspicionless search by the government. But okay, this is who they are. So this was done in Florida. They're about to do this in Texas. In Florida, we had a drug testing regime implemented by Governor Rick Scott for temporary assistance for needy families only, not for unemployment. And what happened here was that, well, a lot of different things happened here. First of all, what happened here was there was no place in many counties to go and pee in the cup. Really, we didn't have any drug testing labs in many of our counties. So unemployed had to, and people who needed temporary assistance needed to travel sometimes. Now, remember, you're unemployed. Sometimes 100 miles or more to pay for your own test when you got there. And the ACLU of Florida found that it was affecting even some terminally ill people who needed financial assistance from the state. They were also required to give urine samples via a catheter, or face having any benefits denied. So this state had to scramble to create some sort of an infrastructure to support the program. And as a result, people's private information was exposed. Results were sent to the wrong locations. In one case, the Department of Children and Families representative showed up at some mom's house unannounced and asked her to pee in a cup right then in her house. All sorts of strange situations occurred as Florida was trying to implement this law, and they rushed into place just like Texas. And, of course, we found pot smokers. We found some pot smokers who failed the drug test, but we also found that if you use stuff like LSD or crack cocaine, or prescription drugs, or which we love to abuse here in Florida, that those drug screens weren't catching those drug users because those drugs leave your system within hours or days, as opposed to marijuana, which is detectable for weeks. Also, alcohol was never tested for, and we all know that that living in poverty it causes an 86% jump in the likelihood that people start binge drinking. Nevertheless, we caught a lot of pot smokers. Not even a lot, okay? These are the numbers. Florida spent $118,000 doing this. Now, remember, you had to pay for your own drug test. So we spent $118,000 setting up the infrastructure, and it saved us $45,000 total. We spent $118,000. It saved us $45,000 so that pot smokers would be caught. We have 6.6 million fewer people than Texas. 16.5% of them live in poverty. In Texas, 17.9% of that very large population, 2.7 million people in Texas, get some kind of state aid. Florida had 1.7 million people having some sort of state aid, and we managed to save ourselves $45,000 by abusing and taking away their constitutional right to a search of their person with no goal except that we thought that they might smoke pot. I mean, this is ridiculous. We caught 2% of all the applicants in Florida. 2% of all the applicants were denied benefits. 2%. Now Texas wants to. You keep treating people in an unconstitutional way. You keep doing this to people, and you're going to come around, what, in 2 more years, 4 more years, and tell me that, you're better on poverty? You're better on income inequality? You're better on jobs? You're better on what? What are you better on? Spending money on stupid programs that violate the Constitution? I mean, this is just an example of the stupid thinking that goes into how do you get people off of food stamps. The answer is better wages, better jobs, better training, better education. But their answer is, let's spend a lot more money to catch 2% of the population that might have had a marijuana cigarette 3 weeks ago. This is why they are who they are. They just can't think their way out of a paper bag.
Randi Rhoads.
More woman than you can handle. But, want to try? 866-87-RANDY. This is the Randi Rhoads Show. Turn down the noise, turn up your mind with Randi Rhoads on Premier Radio Networks.
All right, Peter in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Yes, Randy, you might not agree with me, but I don't think it's a bad thing to drug test people if they're on public assistance. There's abuse in the system.
Do you want alcohol included in that?
You know what? If they were, I think alcohol is a little more accepted. I mean, I'm not saying it's right and whatnot.
So what are we testing for?
What are we testing for? Well, I'll tell you what. Right now, if you're talking about you said something about LSD and other things. I mean, I know that the drug test for drugs like that costs a lot more. I mean, I know that
they cost a lot more than what?
Costs a lot more than testing. When you give a urine sample.
Well, I mean, let's just do this. Under what authority in the Constitution are you allowed to test somebody who is, getting a relief, some sort of relief because they paid taxes their whole life, or they paid into, their employer paid into unemployment insurance, and it's, something that they get if their employer decides to, fire them. What part of the Constitution says that you can do that?
You know what? It's not geared toward that. It's geared toward abuse. And you can't tell me that there's not abuse in the...
Not geared. Never mind geared. Tell me, under the Constitution, why it's permissible to drug test people who are poor.
You know what? Tell me...
don't answer my question with a question. Just say to me whether or not... Just say to me whether or not you believe... Just say to me whether or not do you believe, here's a straightforward yes or no question, do you believe that under the Constitution poor people get to be treated differently than people who aren't poor?
You know what?
No, what?
When you word it like that,
yeah,
it's different because first of all, you're talking about...
It's not different.
No.
And he's gone. Yes, I thought so. When you word it like that, when you put it into context with the constitutional provision against unlawful search of your person or suspicionless search of your person simply because you're in a different economic scale. See, this is so fascinating to me because Republicans think that we have a classless society. And every time you talk to one of them, you find out, no, we don't. You find out that poor people are to be treated differently. They are already suspicious because they're poor. Therefore, they must be drug tested to get an unemployment check, which is an insurance plan that their employers paid for, so that when their employer decided they no longer needed their services, that person wouldn't be thrown out on their ass with no money coming in. But now, because they've lost their job, they are in a different class, according to Republicans, and they must be treated differently because they're suspected, they're suspicious, and the suspicion is that they're doing something wrong, something illegal, something nefarious, and we must invade their privacy. We must invade their constitutional rights, suspend their constitutional rights, and make sure that they're not abusing anything, except for alcohol, because that's more accepted. When was the last time somebody beat their wives because they smoked, a bong? But I know a lot of drunks that, are completely unmanageable and out of control. I know a lot of drunks who can't get up in the morning and go to work. I know a lot of drunks that never look for a job because they're drunk. But, that's accepted. Here's a solution to the difficult problem. Maybe we should drug test people who want to be the Republican presidential nominee. Maybe we should drug test the people who are currently serving in Congress. Maybe we should drug test Rick Perry. Maybe we should find out why Rick Perry couldn't remember which 3 agencies of government he wants to destroy. Maybe we should drug test him. Maybe we should drug test everybody in government. Everybody, because there's abuse, you know. Oh, and by the way, are we going to include prescription drugs, the most often abused drugs in our society? And how do you prove that that person, who's got a prescription drug in their system wasn't prescribed? Now, do you have to go into their medical records and take away that privacy too that's guaranteed to them? You know, what goes on between you and your doctor is protected under HIPAA. I mean, I love, though, that there's such disdain in the Republican Party for people who are doing less well. They're suspicious just because they're getting unemployment. They're suspicious because they're mothers with children and they need help with food. They are automatically suspicious. But we're a classless society. Remember that. Just remember that. Next time they come at you and they go, Obama's playing class warfare. Just remember, you Republicans, class warfare. You have disdain for people who aren't doing as well as you. You have disdain for people who aren't here as long as your family has been here. You have disdain for people who are darker than you. You have disdain for people who don't share your religion. And those people to you, just by virtue of being those people, are suspicious. They're doing something. They must be. They're different than I am. They must be doing something bad. I want to invade their constitutional right to privacy. Women, too. It's fascinating. Fascinating.
Randi Rhoads.
Turn up your mind. Here. Now. This is The Randi Rhoads Show.